Welcome to the podcast where we discuss all about Bethlehem and its future. I'm your host, Ryan Conrad. We're diving into the stories, ideas, and people that make our community shine. So let's talk Bethlehem. I have a very special guest, Chad. He is our sheriff for Alexander County. And I'm just so excited to have you on. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely no problem. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So you've lived in Alexander County pretty much your whole life, right?
I'm born and raised in Ellendale. Then I moved to Bethlehem.
Okay.
For a short stint, elementary school and middle school for me. And then we moved back to Ellendale, and I've lived there ever since.
Nice. Okay. So, I'm just curious, what's kept you rooted here for all these years?
I've just always called this place home.
Yeah.
For me, high school here. Now, my wife is not from here. She's born and raised in Oregon and then moved into North Carolina. And I met her, and we've sort of just, she liked it here before we got married, and then so we've just settled down. I'm a hometown boy. Mm-hmm. I just like it here.
Man, Oregon is some beautiful country, though.
It's gorgeous, but it's some interesting folks out there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It is some interesting folks, she says.
Yeah. So you and your wife, Deanna, right?
Yes.
You've been married for 19-some years?
Yes, going on 20 years, and we've got 2 kids. I've got a daughter that cheers at UNC Charlotte. This
awesome.
is her freshman year, and then I've got a son that's AC, and he's a sophomore.
Nice.
Looks like a senior, but he's a sophomore. He's a big. They make them different these days for some reason.
Oh, and on top of that, they grow up so fast.
Oh, absolutely.
It seems like yesterday my son Jack was born, and he's almost 6 now. So
time flies.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, being a father, husband, how would you say that shaped, the way that you serve Alexander County? And
well, I'll tell you what changed my life more than anything. I'm a saved man. I believe in Jesus, and He's what really changed my life, and put me on that first path. Mm-hmm. Then right out of high school, I went in the military. So that was back in '89. Mm-hmm. Graduated, and just took 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, I was in boot camp. And that really what put me on the path that I'm on right now, more or less. I loved that structure. I loved that part of, service. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get married till I was older. 32. I think I was 32. I'm 54. We're getting ready to be 54 this month, coming up month.
Yeah. I'd say I was 36, 37 when I got married.
And I think that helped me too. Yeah. I was older. I was ready then. I was more settled down. When I first started at the sheriff's office in '93, I was a workaholic. I worked all the time, but I still lived at home. Mom, Dad, I stayed at home, and Mom loved it, and it worked out good for me. So that military and that Jesus coming into my life is really what put me where I'm at right now. Yeah.
So if I got this correct, you were 6 years in North Carolina, the NC Army National Guard.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. And so I'm just curious, you have any wild or funny stories in being in that might have sort of prepared you for being a sheriff?
Well, when I went in, you picture this, that was 18 years, I was 18 years old. Mm-hmm. Just as soon as I got out of basic training, come back, and I went to college. So I sort of knew what I wanted to do. So I'm in college, and I'm in the service, and I was in during the very, very first Gulf War. And I remember we got called up to get ready to go. And I thought, this is the real deal here. This is early 90s. I think it was 90 or 91, I think is about when that was. We got called up. We was doing all our paperwork. We was getting everything done, getting ready to and then it started, and it was over. And that really put me in a place of, what are you really going to, what are you really going to do? You know what I mean? And I was already in law enforcement doing classes and stuff in college. I've got an associate's degree in criminal justice, and I think that really just set my path. At that point, it was a wake-up moment, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So put me where I'm at now.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's really cool.
It was different times then.
Yeah, for sure. So you've been in law enforcement for 30 years?
I am going on 33.
33, okay.
33 years right now.
What would you say, like, over that span of time, the biggest change that you've seen in policing over that period of time?
Here in our county, we've always been respected. It's never been a question of having to deal like some of the other agencies in some other places and outside of North Carolina. So that's not been that big of a thing. I do know now, overall, the respect for other people is going downhill. Doesn't matter who the person is, whether it's an officer or whether it's a mom or a dad. That is, I think, is the change that I wish we could get changed back.
I'm down 100% with you on that.
That respect thing. My dad and my mom taught me, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. I looked at people, I shook their hand, I talked to them.
That's how I was raised.
And these kids, if they're not raised in that type of family, and I notice more now in what we deal with. Now we've got an SRO in every school, and I think that's making a huge impact. But I feel like the family structure is being broke down. There's more divorce. There's more, dad's never been in the picture or mom's never been in the picture, and kids need both.
Yeah.
Mom is what holds everything together, and dad is what keeps that structure there.
Yeah.
And it's both are needed for a kid to grow up and be that they need to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing more than anything right now.
Yeah. So there's a rumor mill going around that Bethlehem has the highest crime rate.
And that is a rumor mill. Now, so in our county, we take more reports in Bethlehem than we do anywhere else. All right. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's all crime. There's different types of reports. There's like a calls for service report. There's all kinds of, larcenies and things like that. Bethlehem has the most population. So having the most populated area, definitely we're going to have more calls, and definitely we're going to have more reports. Same way with the Hidnot area. Ellendale right now is the least, and that's where I live. And it's not because I live there. It's just because it's the least populated. It's got more farms and stuff, but the Hidnot would be second, Stony Point would be third, and Ellendale would be. And it is just running that if you look at it. Now, I don't, because of the way I do the stats, I can't sit here and pull out, we did this, and because I'd be working on it all the time, trying to keep up with that. But a lot of those reports that we're taking, and I'll explain some stuff because I've got me some notes to go over.
Okay, yeah.
So most of those reports are calls for service reports. We go to a domestic. Nobody's arrested. It's just, two people that can't get along, whether it's two brothers, two sisters, a mom and dad, or boyfriend, girlfriend, or just two friends that, they just can't. Well, that generates a report, but it's not anything that we really necessarily do anything with.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
So a lot of those reports happen throughout the, through the months, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So.
And like you were saying, a lot of it probably could be just in result of just being a higher population.
I believe that wholeheartedly, that it is population driven.
So it's not necessarily like Bethlehem's the Wild West or anything, and just full of rough people.
No, but now let's go into explaining the zones a little bit, and that'll help you understand, because we split the county. Now, this happened before I ever became sheriff, so this is never really anything changed. When I started in 93, we done it this way. Now, we didn't have Highway 64, but if you take Highway 16 that runs north and south in our county, and you take Highway 90, not 64, but Highway 90, and it runs completely east to west in our county, that splits our county into 4 zones. So Bethlehem is considered Zone 1. Now, that runs from Highway 16 south at Oxford Dam all the way over to where I live, over at Highway 90 at Johnson's Mill, all the way into town where McDonald's and all those places into there. And if you really take it, it really goes all the way up in that little section of town. That's considered Zone 1. So that's huge.
Yeah.
Now, then if you flip the others, 2, 3, and 4, Ellendale's considered 2. 3 is the Vashti area and Sugarloaf and up in that area, and that comes all the way into town too. And then Zone 4 is that drum stand, a lot of Stony Point area, and it goes to 16 South all the way to Oxford Dam. So you've got big zones. So when you're looking at Zone 1 and you're saying, well, hey, they took, let's say we did 60 reports in Zone 1 last month. Well, that's that whole area of Zone 1. So it's not necessarily in Bethlehem. A lot of that's Ellendale. Some of that is Wittenberg. A lot of it's Wittenberg. So does that make better sense?
Yeah.
It's not as what people think. It's just right here in what would consider Bethlehem 1 and 2 voting district area. It's a lot bigger area than that.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So you've been really tough on drugs and crime. What's the one thing the public doesn't always understand about those challenges and and tackling these issues? Well,
we've had some good wins, and we've had some things that sometimes we can't fix things. As an officer that's going out there, that's what we want to try to do is fix everything. And sometimes we don't have that opportunity. But a lot of times, like a report for us that really bothers us is somebody will call us and say, hey, I've had my motorcycle stolen. Well, they left their motorcycle at their mailbox, and somebody drove. It's very hard for us we might get lucky and solve that case, but most of the time, that's one of those that we're never going to get anywhere. We work it, but it's hard.
Yeah.
We want people to take some responsibility, too. I preach it. Us as the sheriff's office, we can't do everything.
Absolutely.
Our county is, I'm not going to say strapped, but our commissioners do a good job of putting money in different places and spending with what we've got. So we've got to be more of a controlled, like I think of some of the other sheriff's offices that's just around me, Iredell, Catawba, Caldwell. They've got 2 people or 3 people doing a job of what I've got one person doing. And my person's got multiple jobs because I just don't have the manpower. They could give it to me, but boy, it's going to cost us, if you know what I'm saying. I've got multiple jobs, and sometimes it takes us, because of that, we have to, weed through the weaves, and, somebody will call and say, hey, I've not had this phone call. I reported this 2 days ago. I'm waiting for a detective to call me up. Well, they don't realize, we found bones here, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Well,
I heard about that.
Every detective that we've got's been working on that. So it takes a little bit sometimes to get to that end result. I've got the stats that we're right there, and we're. I will say one thing. Well, I'm gonna ask you. Ask my next question. We'll get to some other stats I've got.
Yeah. Well, my next question was going to be how can Bethlehem be more involved in keeping the community safe and. Is there anything we can do better? And you were kind of alluding to that, don't leave your motorcycle at the end of the road, or
you need to take a look around your where you live, and if you're leaving something out, there's a good chance somebody's going to take it. It's just the way it is these days.
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind is the main thing, and the next thing is people don't want to get involved, and they see this. That could solve that case. And we don't have to know who you are.
Yeah.
A simple number that everybody could memorize. It's super easy. It's 828-632-8555. 8555. You call that number, you can leave any tip. You don't have to leave your name. You don't have to nothing. And it gives us an opportunity to follow up on it. And the more that's out there, the better it's easier for us. And the other thing is, if you go to, if you do Google, if you have a Google phone or if you have an iPhone, if you type in Alexander County Sheriff NC in your app store, there's an app that pops up. It's free. It does not cost anybody anything. You can pop it, hit that. We send out news alerts there. We send out weather alerts there. We send out road closures, and it's got a place on there, submit a tip. You hit that. I don't know who sends it in, but it automatically sends an email
that's really cool.
to my phone right then, immediately.
Yeah.
So I know what's going on right then, and it's something that, we can follow up on, and nobody knows.
Yeah.
So those are two easy ways that someone could keep us up with what's going on. That's if they see something, they could just do it, and it also gives us an opportunity to engage with them. So they can see anybody I have in custody at the Alexander County Sheriff's Office by clicking a thing and saying, "Hey, who's been arrested?" And they can see right there who it is, and they know what they're. It's really cool app.
Yeah.
I paid for it with drug fund money, so it didn't really cost the county anything, but I consider it a huge asset. If I could get, if we could get more users, we've got about 2,000 users right now. I'd like to see that double in a year because I think it's a real good thing.
I love that, and thanks for sharing that because I had no idea about.
Oh yeah, it is, and we try to push it out there, but it's hard to get all that information out, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so.
Very cool. So your campaign motto is service above self.
Yes,
and that's a big statement.
It is.
Can you share a time where that really hit home for you?
So back whenever I was a detective, I started in investigations back in 1998. This would have been somewhere around, I think, early 2000s. I got called to a death. This death was an 18-month-old child, a girl, exact same age as my daughter, Brianna, at the time. And come to find out, it was a homicide, and the child had been sexually molested as well, and it hit home. And not many people know this, but it took me a long time to get over that.
I'm sure.
There was nights that I would be sitting watching Bree sleep, and Dee would have no clue where I was at, and she'd come find me and said, "You need to go." And I said, I can't. It was hard.
I believe
and it still bothers me now. And that's the side of law enforcement that people don't get to see. Some of the things that we have to see, the things that we do. I remember almost every death, every murder, and you don't forget those things. Now, the adults, I'm not saying I still don't sympathize. I do, right. But that was something, because this child would have graduated with my daughter. What could she have done? Where would she be? Those questions, and that really changed me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just thinking about that kind of makes me a little sick to my stomach.
It was tough.
Yeah.
And nobody knew. The guys at the office, a lot of them don't even know. But that took me a long time to get over that. And I probably should have talked to some people, but we're stubborn. I'm a guy, I'm very stubborn.
Yeah.
And as far as the other part of me, my wife could tell you, I have spent more time at work than I've got to spend with my family. There's some things I don't miss now, just because of, I missed so much as the kids was growing up, birthday parties and Christmases and things like that I had to work. And they understand, but it's still, I'm not there. I've poured my life into this county and want to continue. I'm still healthy. I'm young. I want to keep working. I didn't like being retired. Just to be honest, I didn't like it at all.
Well, what's that saying? Make hay while.
Yes. And then I feel like
right
I'll
there
know.
with you.
Yeah, I feel like I'll know when it's time. For me, because I'm trying my best to train up the guys that are there. To where the county is still in a good shape and great shape. When I go, it's important for me. Because I'm still going to live here. I'm still going to have still going to be around. But there's times to have that new blood coming in and new approaches about things, and I just think that's what makes America so great.
Yeah.
You know?
And, another good thing, circling back to you were talking about just having that emotional experience, you've been through it. So now you can sympathize with the newer law enforcement that will go through something similar, and you'll be able to understand that and sort of translate that for them too.
It is. It's that, along with, since I've been in the office, I've had an officer-involved shooting, and trying to work them through that. It's not easy.
Well, and then on top of that, you have, the keyboard warriors that get on and just don't have any understanding of what's going on. And they can be so harsh.
Oh,
but you don't understand what, you're an officer actually goes through what. I mean, people just sometimes just need to shut up. But it's just
you can say that. Opinion. I can't say that. Freedom of speech is out there, but I don't pay attention a lot to what's posted on Facebook.
Yeah.
If the sheriff's office did not have to have a Facebook page, or I didn't have to have one, I would not have one.
Yeah.
Just because I think that's the way everybody's gaining information now. So I know that you have to do it that way. And what you post, people are like, you should take that down. And I said, no, they have a right to say what they want to say, And while we're on that, a lot of people will gig us for, why are you putting their pictures on there? Why are you doing it? Well, I want to explain that. That's public record. If someone's arrested, it's public record. So if it's requested by enough, like local news people, then I'll post it and let them gain their information from that, instead of me having to send to the news media and stuff. It's public record. I can't do anything about that. You can come to the report or come to my office, honestly, and you could say, hey, I want to know every report that happened at this particular address. And I have to give you a public copy of what that is.
Yeah.
So it's people don't realize that is public record, and people, if they request it, sometimes I've got to put that. I don't get out here, and if somebody's arrested for failure to appear, I don't post that. I know that Rick Gilbert, he's a local radio guy down in town. He calls me almost every day to gain information about different things, and he has that right to do it. And then Taylorsville Times will calls me as well about different things, and I'm required to provide that information to them. So a lot of the things that I put out there, it's public record requests that I just need to post and move on with.
That kind of makes me think about Alexander County GIS, and I could look up anybody right now. I can find out if people were late on their taxes.
Absolutely.
Which I actually was. I got penalized 10, 15, 20, or I don't remember how much it was, but I was late. I just forgot about it.
It happens a lot.
You can go on there and look and say that I was late payment on my tax. You can find out. It's just public information, and there's been a lot of the Incorporation thing going on, you're doxing and this and that. I'm just no, it's just public information.
That is correct.
It's not like we're saying everybody grab your pitchforks and head to so-and-so's house or whatever. But it made me think of that, being public information.
Yeah, and that's required by law. North Carolina law, that is required. I get public information requests every day about some of the craziest things, like one I'm dealing with right now, Lexipol, which is a company that we used to do our policy through, and want to know how much money we paid them from certain time to certain time. Well, I have to provide that. So it's things like that we just have to put it out there.
Yeah. Sort of a fun question, or maybe not a fun question. If you weren't in law enforcement, what do you think you'd be doing right now, career-wise?
Career-wise, that is interesting.
Maybe you've never thought about it.
Well, I love to work on things. I love to build. I think I would be one of two things. I think I would either be a carpenter, electrician, or a combination of both. That's just stuff that I love to do. I love to work outside. I love to have my hands and stuff.
Me too.
So
Me too.
I think it'd be one of those two things. I think.
Yeah.
I've spent enough time in the office, so I want to be out and about.
Yeah. My uncle, he works in construction, and ever since I could hold a hammer, I've been helping him doing stuff, and now I'm building my own stuff. But and I'll probably bug the crap out of him, calling him like, should I tie this line into this line? Am I going to get shot? Or whatever. But,
yes.
Beyond that, I love it too. Like I do. That's probably, if I wasn't in media and group design and stuff like that, I would definitely be working in the construction industry.
Oh yes, that's I love to work with my hands.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the bigger reasons you're here, and we don't have to keep on this long because I don't want this podcast to be known for the Incorporation podcast, because this is more about just serving our community and Bethlehem and the people, and I want to have businesses come in, and I just really want this to be informative for people and fun, and also just a way to bring people together, and But I do have this topic. I talked with you earlier.
Yep.
It wasn't off limits.
No, it's not.
I'm just curious about your opinion. There's a lot of talk about Bethlehem Incorporating.
Yes.
From a law enforcement perspective, what would change, if anything?
So I've been inquired from both sides about that. And I, as the sheriff, want to continue the law enforcement services in Bethlehem. I don't want that to change at all. This is the part of the county I've always worked, is this area up in here. And since I first started, I worked here more than I did anywhere else in the county. So for me, there's services that are required that the sheriff is required to do in the county. It's detention services, so the jail. I operate that for wherever within the county. So if you're looking at Taylorsville City, that is incorporated. I operate the jail for them at no particular, no additional cost. I serve all the civil papers within the city of Taylorsville. That is required by law for me to do, and that would not change at all. And that's from domestic violence orders to if I'm suing you for something or you're suing me, things like that. Now, what could change is depending on what services that they wanted when they incorporated. I would still do law enforcement services, but if they needed additional services, then that would have to come at a cost.
Yeah.
So it depends. It's really hard for me to say right now, but I would like it to be as normal, and I could just do what I do with what the budget I have. Now, some of that could be things that the sheriff can't control. I can say I'm going to do this, and I'll do it, but if I'm cut by the commissioners and the county, they cut my budget, or if there's shortfalls and they say, hey, we've got to make this up in other ways, then it may put me in a situation where I've got to do something different. But that would be a county dealing with that city.
Yeah.
And I would not be necessarily in that. I would want the services to be exactly the way they are now. I want to say this. I try my best to keep someone up here all the time. Now, that's a struggle sometimes. A lot of people don't know how we work. So if you take Alexander County, and we're big, we're about 300 and some odd square feet, 38,000 people. Right now working, supposed to be 4. At lunchtime, there'll be a 5th person come on. That means road deputies that are out here answering calls. Now, detectives, they'll be out working, but they're not out unless it's a bad call or something. There's a captain that's at the office that's doing a lot of the administrative stuff that needs to be done. But out here answering calls, there's 4. Well, I'm short now, so I'm down to 3. And some days I'll have 4, but most days it's going to be 3. So sometimes if it's busy in other parts of the county, it's hard to keep somebody here all the time.
Yeah.
But we do a pretty good job right now of keeping somebody up here all the time, and patrolling, giving serving papers and things like that. So I hope my hope is that I can continue doing what I'm doing with no big changes at all. Now, if they say, hey, we want somebody to run radar every single day on Rink Dam Road on Highway 127, I'm going to say, all right, then we're going to have to do some adjusting. That's going to have to cost this. That's not what a sheriff really wants to do. I don't want to run radar. I don't want to be out here writing tickets. There's other things that we can be investigating and working on and doing. But I get a lot of calls about that, about 127 and Rink Dam Road. So we do some enforcement like that.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure. And I've got one other question.
Okay.
Just a quick one, and you don't have to answer it.
No, it's
if you weren't in law enforcement and you went out to the polls today and voted, would you say that you would say let's incorporate or let's not?
so. Here's how I'm going to answer that. I live in Ellendale, so I don't have a dog in that fight.
Right.
So if I lived in Bethlehem, I don't know what I would do at this point because I've always just said when people's asked me, I said I don't truly have a dog in the fight. I live in Ellendale.
Yeah.
So I've just really never really thought and sat down and thought that through what I would like better one or the other.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Cool. Well,
I
let's.
know that's skirting around, but
No, that's totally fine.
But
Yeah.
if I lived here, I would give you a true answer.
Yeah.
I would because I'm not going to lie about things.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to move on to some others. I got just the last little bit here.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break because it's just going to be a fun lightning round of questions.
Okay, but now there is one thing, couple
Okay.
things I would like to go over of stats that
Sure.
I think is really cool. Now we can do it later or we can do it now. It's up to you.
Let's take a quick break.
Okay.
When we come back, let's talk about those stats.
Okay.
And then we'll do the lightning round
All right.
and we'll wrap it up.
That sounds good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. We're back. And I believe you're going to tell us some stats.
Yes. Let me first explain where these stats come from. You can look them up. This comes from the North Carolina SBI, and we have to report every county, every agency within the state, in the United States have to report to what's called the NIBR system, and it's the National Incident Reporting System. And what that does is they have categories of crimes that must be reported. All right. So the reason I brought this is I'm going to go through the categories, and I'm sort of going to go through the numbers so I can tell you and explain to you some of the improvements that's happened over some years. So murder is one, rape is one, robbery is one, aggravated assault. Now, I won't explain aggravated assault. That's going to be like assault with a deadly weapon, assault by pointing a gun, those types of crimes to include like assault with a serious injury, things like that. Now, some of those we'll do a report on, but there's no investigation, and I want to explain that. So you call me out to your house, and you say, hey, I had a dispute with my neighbor. My neighbor got out a gun. He pointed a gun at me. Officers get here, and the neighbor's already in the house. We didn't see it happen. We can't charge them, but we can explain to you what to do for you to go charge them. Does that make sense? So some of these are out of our control on the end result, of how many we solve. Then burglaries, larcenies, and motor vehicle thefts. That's the big ones. And it comes up with a total. So here's what this is what I think is a win for us as far as the sheriff's office goes. It goes all the way back to 2018 when we first went into this new reporting system. It used to be UCR, and now it's NIBRS. 2018, out of those categories, we had a total of 662 reportable offenses. All right? We solved about 251 for about a 37% rate. And that's really good. Now, 2022 is when I took office. It had dropped to 476. So that's a huge drop over that time frame, And the clearance rate was about 22% out of that, which is still it's pretty consistent across the state. If you're in that 20 to 30 range, you're about in what the norm is. In 2023, so this would be the first year of me being in office, we dropped 10%. So we went from 476 to 425. I've not got the numbers yet because they've not got them put in for 2024 yet, but I still think there'll be another drop or will be about that same from what I see the numbers trending. And we're solving about a 25% rate. So I'm very pleased about that. That means our reports are staying about the same, but on the reports that are being reported that we have to report, our numbers are way down.
Trending
so that means
down.
crime's down. So that's a huge that's a huge thing for me as the sheriff. See, that I can get out here and say, hey, just in a year we've dropped 10%, and I hope we drop another 10%. I feel like that's I think that's a good thing. The guys are really doing a lot of work. Now let's talk about arrest. So going all the way back to 2018, total arrest throughout the whole county was about 1,064. And there was about 27 drug arrests in there. Today, let's start off in 2023. 2023, we had 1,047, and we had 172 drug arrests. This last year, we had 1,011, and we had 151 drug arrests. So some numbers that just if you get to where some people will get them to thinking, okay? If you average out in 2023, we're arresting about 87 people a month, and we're making about 14 drug arrests every month. So that's one every other day. Those are big numbers. Mm-hmm. In 2024, we were about 84 arrests every month, and we're arresting 151. That's 12.5. So that's still a good number that I've really wanted to hit the drugs hard, because I feel like that's what our major problem is right now.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that with, the guys on the road that's working, and 2 narcotics guys. So they're working their tail off, and I think it's showing, because we're making quite a few arrests. So now let's talk in Bethlehem, because people
I got
want
a
to talk.
story I want to tell you too.
All right, you tell me a story, but let's talk Bethlehem, okay? Because that's why we're here. Now, I want to explain. Whenever we do a report, one of the things that we look at is what zone it's in, and making sure that that's right. The arrests are different, because if I'm arresting someone, I've got to get that arrest submitted. So there's nobody looking at that. Nobody looking at that report. It's going straight into the system. And the reason for that is they can't start processing them in detention until they've popped in there, that arrest has been, put in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you.
So sometimes deputies need some encouragement. They don't always get everything right. So that is one thing that we're trying to make a point of this year of, hey, let's make sure we get these zones right. I feel like this is a little low. It looks like in 2024 we had 150 arrests, 156 arrests in Bethlehem. I'd say it's probably
those are drug-related arrests?
Well, no, just arrests
just
in general.
Okay.
In general.
Gotcha.
It could be for shoplifting. It could be, for failure to appear. It could be for whatever. I feel like that number should be a little higher, I would think. And then in 2024 is 134. That is one thing that I noticed whenever I was pulling these numbers, that we're going to go back and we're going to try to start fixing those arrests, because the guys are not necessarily looking at that. So those numbers are going to be off a little bit. You're looking at 1,000. I would say we'd probably be closer to the 300 to 400 mark. I'm just, speculating.
Yeah.
But I think it would be closer to there. Now, I just want to sort of relate. I don't like to talk about other counties, because they have their own challenges and stuff. But I do think in this, for the people in our county, they should see sort of where we stand.
Yeah.
So if you take our surrounding counties and you look at their the rate, their percentage rate of what they're solving, we're slap in the middle. Wilkes is at 30. Caldwell is right at 20. Catawba is right at 20. Iredell is right at 24. So we're right within what everybody else is doing. So we're sort of above, the upper end of that. The other thing, the numbers are always going to be not exact. That's the one thing that bothers me, because it shows in here that we've got a murder that's opened. We don't have a murder. We've solved every one of the murders. I know which one they're talking about. We just had to resubmit it. So there's always going to be a few little
something that skews the
exactly.
data.
But this is pretty close.
Yeah,
I feel pretty good about this. So that's just a few things that I thought people in the county would like to know.
Absolutely.
I feel like it's important to for them to know that, and times like this are where places I can get that put out there.
Yeah. It's in that vein of just drugs being such an issue. I have this story that I can share, and you may have been involved with this, but because there was a lot of law enforcement. But at the time, I was living with my mom and dad down River Hills Court, down in River Ridge Run, and I was
exactly what you're talking about. I was there. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I want to tell this for other people because this is kind of an interesting story. And sometimes, I get a little anxious. But I was out, I think it was around Christmas time. Pretty sure I was putting Christmas lights out. It was nighttime. Not late night, just got dark. And I'm putting Christmas lights up. And I look up, I hear a helicopter, and I see a light. And I'm like, what is going on? The helicopters don't come out this area. And then I see this light, and it shines down. And I'm at this point, I know those are on Spotify and those other, they're not going to see my reaction here. But if you're watching the YouTube, I was really on my knees, like getting down in my front yard.
Yeah.
Because as soon as that helicopter came over, there was a SWAT van. There were more cops. And they came and they just skirted straight up Colt. I think Colt was the name of that road. Colt's Neck.
Yep.
It was a drug bust.
Yes, it was.
And I'm not going to give out any names or anything, but it was a big bust, and it had been going on for a long time. We knew something was up.
Yeah. And
this is a nice neighborhood.
No, it is. I can tell you the inside scoop on that.
Yeah.
Because it's over with. So what was going on was now I've done almost everything at the sheriff's office. I started off as an SRO, then a deputy, then a supervisor, then investigations, and then I started working drugs from about 98 till, almost up until the time that retired Sheriff Chris Bowman put me in as captain. And that would have been in 2012, I think, somewhere right around in there. And what happened was he had actually had a meeting with the community down there, and they were complaining about this particular house, all the traffic. And he come to me and he said, do something about it. Mm-hmm. And I knew what he meant. So I started working my old sources and stuff, and I found somebody that could go buy from them, and they were selling pills. That's what they were doing. This is back when the Oxycontin pills, that's what they were selling, was Oxycontin, hydrocodones, things like that. That was big time around then. And so we did a couple buys in there, and then we hit it with a search warrant, and we found all kinds of pills, and we arrested a bunch of people, and the helicopter was sort of a show, if you know what I'm saying. But
it was cool.
It made an impression, if you know what I mean. But there was a lot of people in that house. Seems like there was like 8. Well, we arrested 8 or 9, give or take, somewhere right around in there.
I think the saddest part about it, it's been such a long time since that happened.
Long time.
But the saddest part is when I was in the front, I think a couple kids came out, and one of the officers said, do you mind if the kids, and I was like, they can come in our home if they need to. We'll give them some, it was cold.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, let's just let them sit right here, because that really broke my heart. Yeah, seeing the kids evolve.
And we deal with that a lot, a lot, and it's hard. That's a hard thing.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So let's move on. This
all right. Lightning round.
I've got 3 questions here.
All right, that's cool.
And then
that's easy.
Yeah. So here's some quick hits.
Okay.
What's your local go-to spot for a meal in Alexander County?
Oh, gosh, you're going to get me in trouble. All right. So for breakfast, Scotty's.
Okay.
For lunch, it's Teens and Deans.
Okay.
And, hold on. Let me go back. So breakfast, I'm sort of a 3. There's 3 places that I like to go. Dairy Bar, Scotty's, and then there was a place in Hidden Isles called Jean's. And Jean's no longer in business, but those was my 3. It's normal. I would go to one of those 3. I sort of try to spread myself out. Lunchtime, I like Teens and Deans. And then if I'm really wanting a cheeseburger, I mean like really, 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 really wanting a cheeseburger, then I'm going to Crossroads.
That's it.
Or I love Apple City. I love their barbecue sandwich. So that's sort of my faves, I guess you would say.
I would 100% agree on the burgers. My dad would argue with me and say that it's not the best, but I agree with you wholeheartedly, and a lot of people do.
Yeah,
because that place is popping.
Yes, it is. It is. But now I'm a country boy.
Yeah,
you know, my wife loves casa in town, but I'm a country boy. I would rather have meat and potatoes than I would anything else. So you know.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty equal on that. But when you said Dairy Bar, I've never been there, but I've gone by. A buddy of mine, and we still try to stay in touch. Chris Atwood used to live out there.
I know Chris. Yeah.
Good. We were thick as thieves in high school, and family kind of separate. But yeah, I really like Chris. He's a good guy.
They make the best country ham biscuits you ever stick in your mouth.
Okay.
So if you like that, ride down there.
Is it country ham?
Country ham.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's the good stuff.
What's the best advice you've ever received about just leadership?
Oh.
That's less of a light question and more of like a pretty deep question, but yeah.
All right. One thing that was preached into me in the military, and I try my best to do it now, is you always lead from the front. You're going to get your people to follow you if you're doing it. Now, I'm very involved, and they would tell you sometimes I drive them crazy because I worked investigations for so long, and it's uncommon in a bigger county for the sheriff to show up at a scene. I show up all the time because I want to know what's going on, and I try to sit back and I've learned, and with my age, I sit back and I watch and I let them do their thing. And then after it's over, I'll pull them aside and say, hey, let me tell you something that worked for me. And try to, because I want them to learn. That's how you make better officers. And the hardest thing sometimes for an officer to do is learn how to talk to people. It is. Sometimes we come off, even me included, sometimes I'll come off abrupt. And I don't mean to, but it's just whatever, all this other stuff's going on, and then I'm put in this situation, and it's hard to sometimes I got to deal with this. I got to deal with this a little bit different way, And I get a lot of complaints about, let's be honest, about how they talk to people sometimes, and sometimes it's the person is they're building, the other person is building, and it builds the officer up, and then neither one can come down.
I've seen it. We've all seen it on the record, those dash cams and recordings. You want my honest opinion, I really 100% feel that not the officer, the other is just continuously just trying to get a rile out of the officer and get them out of line, get them on video for doing something wrong. It's so dumb. Just do what the officer says and you can go on with your day.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that. It's hard. Me being there, it is hard to get that adrenaline to dump before you try to calm down.
With a 5-year-old up
here. You do that. It can be trying. And I've found I have really grown in that area that I don't jump so quick anymore. Now, one thing I very dislike, and it'll get me into agitated, I guess would be a nice way, is when people start saying, well, your deputy's crooked, or he done this, or he done that. And I know that's not what happened. And now that irritates me a lot. But, the guys are out here and the girls are doing the best they can do, and they're just humans.
Yeah, I mean,
and they do mess up. I'm not going to say they don't, but that's where we sit down and we talk about it and we try to fix it for the next time. And I've seen some huge strides.
That's kind of why I really wanted when Josh came on to just talk about his family, let people understand that he's not some robot behind doing his job. These are human beings. These are people that are trying to serve our community. And every step of the way, it's already hard to do your job. But then when you add other people that just can't be adults, it makes it so much more difficult to do it. And people are going to lose their temper.
Oh, absolutely.
I say all the time, I'm not going to yell at my kid again. I'm going to do gentle parenting and all this stuff, and I try so hard, but then he'll push me to the point where I just let it go. I mean, we're all human. We make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The thing about it is owning them.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like I've grown a lot is,
Absolutely.
is just, I do my best, even with my kids. I'm pretty protective.
Yeah.
Both of my kids will tell you I'm sort of that, that dad, and I've always been that dad. They know it.
Yeah.
So we just owning it with everybody, trying to be, up front and trying to be as transparent as we can be. That's why whenever you called me, I was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm not going to avoid sitting down and talking to somebody about, things that are going on in this county, because I think people have the right to know what's going on.
Absolutely.
And be able to ask questions about what's going on. It's important.
That's the biggest problem that I have had all along with this is I don't think people really know what they're trying to do. I mean, and it's not that I feel like what they're trying to do is something malice. It's just, it's going to have, for every decision, it's going to help some people and it's going to hurt others. And I think it's our civic duty to let everybody know. And what bothers me about it the most is I feel like it's been very under the table. Like, there's a lot of people that still have no idea what they're trying to do.
Here's the thing.
They could go public.
Yeah.
They could go with the county. They could send out a mailer. They could survey the entire Bethlehem community. I mean, there's a lot of things they could do to really let it be known. But they're just kind of slipping on.
I feel like United States of America, one of the greatest things is everybody has a say. My say may be different than your say, but once that say's out there, then we suck it up and we move it. Man, I don't like it, And the best thing in this scenario that with the Incorporation is everybody be aware of what's going on. Everybody that's involved be able to have a voice in it, whether that be a vote or whether that be town hall or whatever it is. So everything gets out, and then it needs to come to a vote, one
Absolutely.
way or another, where everybody has an opportunity to voice their opinion about, yes, I want it, or no, I don't want it. And at that point, I've heard a lot of people say that's a lot smarter than me. Every election has its consequences, and what they're saying is, depending on what side of the party decided that it is, well, that ain't how I wanted it to go. But each election, things change. Some good, some bad. And then that's why the next time it comes around, you have an opportunity to say, well, I like the way they did this, or I like that. Well, you can vote for that person again, or you can say, no, I want to go in a different direction. And, and that, being in the sheriff's office my whole career, I've had election after election after election that I've had to go through. The difference is now is the election's me. It's about me, the job I've done, the job that the guys and the girls are doing, and it's more personal.
Yeah,
100%. I still want to do that same work then. I wanted to stay. I wanted to keep working. I wanted to do my job. Now it's about, how good of a job have I done as the sheriff here to make sure that we're doing what we need to do.
Yeah.
And I think if it's done that way, then whatever happens will, it'll be the opinion of the majority of the people that's involved in it.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. And Eddie Settle told several of us.
He's super guy. He
said, a piece of paper does not make a town. Votes will.
Yes.
And if it gets to that, we'll see.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, this is a great liaison in the very last question.
Okay.
If you could instantly fix one problem with the snap of a finger.
Drugs.
Drugs? Okay.
Drugs.
Easy enough.
And I'll tell you what I've seen. And this will sort of explain. And yes, I'm a Republican. All right? I'm not going to deny that. Yes, I'm very, very conservative. I do not spend money just on a whim for anything. I'm very tight on that. But if you look at what's happened in our country, open border has killed us when it comes to drugs. Everything is piling there. And I want to explain how I know this. when I'm dealing with people now, and I'm stopping somebody that ain't got no money, they're going day to day, and they went from they got a gram of meth on them to now they've got ounces to multiple ounces or to half a pound of meth on them. Mm-hmm. Something's happened. That person still ain't got no money. I arrested them back here, and they were just stealing or whatever they could do to get $100 to buy a gram of meth. Mm-hmm. And now you can get a gram of meth for $60. Back then it's 100, 120, you know, and people were making it in 2-liter bottles, and now we hardly ever see a meth lab. Now, I'm saying that, I'm beating on your table that's wood, that will have one. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they're not any around, but there's so much coming across the border, and it's by a lot bigger volumes than when I was working it. It tells me a story. Mm-hmm. Too much availability. So I'm hoping that this administration will, Congress, whatever, will do something and tighten that border up to where it's less accessible. Yeah. If we get that accessibility down, you know, Alexander County is no different than anywhere else. Everybody's having a drug problem. Everybody does. Meth is the pusher of it. Fentanyl is out there, and we work cases with fentanyl all the time, but what I'm seeing is fentanyl's in the meth. Mm-hmm. And so it's combined. And I have a hard time. We just had a call today on the way I was coming here, mm-hmm. of a possible overdose that was in town. We're averaging in that we were doing a lot more. We were doing 10 and more a day at a time, and now we're with our port paramedic that doesn't work for me, works for EMS, and between us and the police department, I think we're trending down. I think last month we had 4, no fatals. This month I don't know where we stand right now, but that number is coming way down because of some of the things that the county has put in place and some of the projects that we've done. But if we could cut that accessibility down, it would help tremendously. And that, I feel like all these other things that I talked about, all these other, you know, larcenies and B&E especially, is a result from the drugs, because it's the same. A lot of people, we were talking about that earlier, about that public record and people posting stuff on Facebook after we arrest somebody. Mm-hmm. A lot of them is the same people. Yeah, they just rotate through. Some of that is because they just don't learn. Some of it's because, and I know of one guy right now that's in my custody right now. He's got nowhere to go. He gets out. He's already asking about when he gets out. Mm-hmm. So he knows when he's getting out. Within 2 or 3 days, he'll be right back. Mm-hmm. And it's because that's where he wants to be. He gets fed, he gets taken care of. Yeah. And they have some sense of, you know, security. Now, that may change when it gets warmer weather, where he can, you know, I can handle it outside. Yeah. But during the wintertime, we mm-hmm. always keep a little more because they want to stay warm. They want to stay warm. They're going to get fed. They got nowhere to go. Yeah. And now some of that's by choice, some of it's not by choice. And I wished I knew the answers to that, but that's not all about the sheriff, if you know what I mean. That that's more aspect. Psychological stuff there. It's a game. And I want to give a big shout out. If anybody's listening and they have an issue with a drug abuse issue, something like that, we've got a program in our county, and it's Alexander County Port, P-O-R-T. And they're paramedics, and they are helping people with resources and helping them with classes and helping them with different things to help them get off of those things. So reach out to them. I wished I knew the number right off the top of my head, but I don't. But if you look it up. If we can find it, I'll display it on YouTube. It would be great. Here. It's Alexander County Port Paramedic, and they are doing great work. I work with them all the time and they're helping make those connections with resources and situations that I just don't have the capabilities. So it's a great program that's in the county that they've started up. So I would ask everybody to check into that. If you've got an issue, go that direction. Yeah. Look to them.
Circling back to the border,
Yes.
I know someone that has talked with not directly, but
Yes.
that lives right at the border on the American side.
Yes.
I think it's somewhere around Texas.
Yes.
And I have to be honest, for a long time, I'm like, how bad really is it? Some people just want to seek asylum.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it. The United States is a great place.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I get that. But in the same sense, I had no idea how bad it really was until I heard from a friend of mine that lives right at the border and says they literally won't go out at night, even to like Walmart, public places. The parking lots are dangerous. And I had no idea. I mean, I hear a lot of stuff on the news, and obviously, you and I both know fake news comes a dime, a dollar,
yes.
but from everywhere, both sides,
Yes.
everywhere.
No, yes, I agree.
With social media, internet, it's a fire hose for just all kinds of stuff. But beyond that, I mean, to hear us from a real person that actually lives at the border saying, yes, it's bad. I do not go out at night. It's rough. It kind of hits home. So, for those listening that weren't sure, how bad really is it, I can tell you that's a report directly from somebody that I know that lives there. I
go to a lot of conferences because that helps us keeps me in the loop of what's going on throughout the whole country. And they've told us, and it has been bad. I'm hoping it improves. It may not. But I want to leave everybody with this. I am your sheriff. I do have an open door policy. Now, sometimes I've got meetings and things that I've got to be at, so I may not be there right then, but I promise I will get back to you. But my office number is 828-352-7950. Anyone wants to talk to me, you call me. I promise I will call you back, and we'll have a conversation about whatever your issue is that you have going on.
All right. Well, I can say and attest that you are a really stand-up guy. And
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm glad to have you as our sheriff.
Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully we get to do another term.
Absolutely.
All right.
And also, congratulations on your reelection. So,
well, let's hope that happens. We'll see. I don't file till this coming December, so we'll see what happens. It'll be 2026.
Okay.
When I'm up to come up again.
Cool.
All right.
All right, guys. That's it. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.